My best friend once told me, dude, your birthday is going to be unforgettable. I have the surprise of the century for you. I imagined some epic gift like a phone, a trip, maybe a game console. But when the evening came and all the guests had gathered, he burst through the door carrying the biggest cake I have ever seen. It was so massive he barely fit through the entrance. He sets the cake right in the middle of the table, candles lit, everyone gathering around. Phones out, ready to film. I lean in to make my wish, and then it happens. He trips and falls face first into the cake. Dead silence, everyone freezes, I can't even react. My birthday, which was supposed to be perfect, is now a disaster. And then comes the unexpected twist. He slowly lifts his head, covered in cream. The strawberry stuck on his forehead and wipes his eyes with frosting. He stands up, looks at everyone, and shouts. Now, everyone attack. Guests immediately dive at the cake with their hands. The room erupts in laughter and chaos. People are taking pictures. Some are even smearing frosting on each other, and I'm just sitting there in disbelief. Hey, guys, welcome to my channel. Today I will tell you the story of how my best friend ruined my birthday. No, actually, how he made it the craziest birthday I've ever had. You see, my best friend, Dan, has always been a bit of a klutz. Like, if there was a way to break it, he would find a way. So, when he told me he had the surprise of the century for my birthday, I had no idea what to expect. All I knew was that whatever it was, it involved a lot of effort because he had been planning it for months. He wouldn't tell me anything, but he kept saying, dude, you won't forget this. When the day arrived, I had no clue what he had planned. We were celebrating with a small group of friends. As the evening went on, we drank, we played video games, and we laughed. But by 11 p.m., everyone had gone home except for my girlfriend, Chloe, and my other best friends, Alex and Dan. Okay, guys, I need your help, Dan said. Where do you think I should hide the cake? What cake? I asked. Dude, I told you I have the surprise of the century for you. Didn't Alex tell you? Tell me what? Alex asked. Oh, man, I was supposed to tell you guys. I'm so sorry, Dan said to us. I asked Chloe earlier if she had any clues, but she acted like she didn't know what I was talking about. You gotta admit, it's pretty genius. Wait, does this have something to do with the package that was delivered earlier today? I asked. Bingo dot, it's right behind you, Dan said, pointing at the giant box in the corner. Do you want to see it? Now, before I could answer, he was already tearing into the wrapping paper. What the hell? Why did you open it like that? Alex yelled at him. That totally ruined the surprise. Sorry, Dan mumbled. As the package opened, a huge cake came into view. It was so massive it barely fit through the front door. Holy mother of God, I whispered. How are we gonna fit that thing in my fridge? Don't worry, dude. I already took care of that, Dan said with a wink. He had already moved it into the kitchen. He came back into the living room with 3 candles. Okay, let us get this thing into my room so I can blow out the candles and make a wish, I said. Actually, I have another surprise, Dan interrupted. You don't want to blow out the candles. You're going to do much better than that. What do you mean, I asked. Dan looked at me with a big smile on his face and shouted, everyone attack. Before I could even react, Alex and Chloe jumped onto the cake. They started smashing it with their hands while Dan grabbed a spoon and started digging in. Then they all looked at me and started laughing hysterically. Come on, dude, Alex said between laughs. Don't just stand there. Get in here. And that's exactly what I did. I joined them and attacked the cake. We were laughing and screaming and eating cake for 30 minutes straight afterwards. We took pictures and videos. Alex posted some of them on social media with the caption, "Happy birthday, dude. Hope you have an awesome day." We kept partying all night long. By the next morning, I had completely forgotten about Dan's first surprise, the one he had planned for months. It wasn't a big deal anyway. I mean, sure, it would have been cool to get a new phone or something, but it was my 20th birthday. What did I know? Fast forward 5 years. I'm now 25, and I still laugh when I think about how that night ended. Dan's plan didn't involve a big gift or a big party. His idea of a great time was to eat a whole cake together. And who doesn't love a good old-fashioned cake fight? So imagine this, it's my very first date with this guy I've been talking to for a while. I'm standing outside the restaurant, nervously adjusting my dress, thinking this is it. The perfect romantic evening, and then my boyfriend steps out of the taxi holding a huge funeral wreath. Okay, maybe not what I was expecting. I'm a bit confused, but still smiling. I mean, how sweet, right? But then I see the actual size of this thing and the big black ribbon. It's clearly a funeral wreath. Now, I'm not even trying to be funny, but the confusion on my face must be pretty clear because he sees it and says, "What?" So I finally find my voice and ask, "What is this?" And he replies, "I told you we're meeting at 8, right?" I arrived early to order us some wine, and they wouldn't let me in until I gave them this. I could tell by his tone that he was dead serious. No, hidden camera, right? So, we enter the restaurant, and everyone in there, from the waiters to the other customers, stare at us, literally the entire restaurant. A woman at the next table starts snickering, and someone pulls out their phone to start filming. He calmly walks towards our table, sets the wreath down, sits down, and orders dinner like nothing happened. Seriously, what kind of man brings a funeral wreath on a first date? What is he trying to do? Scare me off. I mean, I've heard of bringing flowers or chocolates or maybe a cute stuffed animal, but this was beyond unromantic, eh? At that point, I couldn't hold it anymore. One had to get out of there. So I excused myself to go to the restroom just to breathe. When I come back, The wreath is now sitting on a nearby table, and a couple is taking pictures with it like it's some kind of fun prop. I literally wanted to melt into the floor and disappear. Just then, the waiter comes over, takes a look at the wreath, and asks, "So, whose memorial is today?" Everyone in the restaurant burst into laughter. I felt like I was gonna blush out of my skin, and I asked him again, "But why the wreath? Why not just flowers?" Then comes the line that makes me want to facepalm. He looks me straight in the eyes and says, completely serious, "It's for your ex. Let them know they have no competition." More applause breaks out in the restaurant. People are laughing and having a great time at my expense. All I can do is cover my face with my hands and think, this date, I will never forget it. So, after I get home, I call my best friend and tell her the entire story. She listens patiently and then says, "You didn't say anything when you saw the wreath, when you entered the restaurant, or when the waiter said something. You should have said something." I explained that I was in shock. I was speechless. I mean, who does that on a first date? I was too shocked to think, too shocked to speak, and honestly, too shocked to laugh. She thought for a moment, well, it does sound funny now, but I understand. Listen, you need to tell me everything about this guy. Why did you agree to go on this date in the first place? Tell me everything. So I did. I told her how we met through a mutual friend, how we started talking a few weeks ago, and how he seemed like a nice guy. He's funny, smart, and he seems to like me a lot. She replied, "That's good. But you agreed to go out with him alone. You know, one of my rules is never go anywhere alone with a man. Always have a friend or a group of friends. You should have brought your sister or a friend." I apologized. I know. I got carried away. I really like him," she sighed. "Well, I guess it's not the end of the world. Maybe you two can laugh about it now. But remember, always have a friend with you when you go anywhere with a man. I promise I won't make that mistake again." So what did you think? How would you have reacted in this situation? And what would you have said to him? Let me know in the comments below. One day my boss lost it. Now, my boss was usually a pretty chill dude. So, when his face was as red as a tomato and veins were popping out of his forehead, you knew something was wrong. To make things worse, he was pacing back and forth in front of the entire team. Then, without any warning, he opened the door with such force that several papers flew out and landed on the floor. My boss didn't even bother to look at them. Instead, he walked in and slammed the door behind him. "Who messed up the report?" he shouted. His voice was so loud it literally sent chills down my spine. At this point, he was throwing folders and papers around like a madman, and my co-workers were hiding behind their monitors like freaking turtles. I mean, seriously, they were peeking from behind their monitors, whispering to each other. What do you think he's talking about? What happened? The only one who wasn't freaking out was our team leader, Lisa. She just calmly sipped her tea as if nothing was happening. I sat there frozen, thinking, oh no, that report was mine. I failed to finish it because I had way too much work. And now my boss was looking for someone to blame. He continued marching around the office like a general on a battlefield, yelling at everyone, "Was it you? Was it you?" Everyone responded with, "No, not me," and shook their heads frantically. My heart was pounding in my chest like it was about to burst out. I wanted to apologize, but I couldn't get a word out. I was completely frozen. And then my boss stopped right in front of me, slammed a folder on my desk and screamed, This is your fault." I stood up, my hands shaking. I opened my mouth to speak, but before I could say a word, he went silent. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. My boss took a deep breath and slowly leaned in. He looked me straight in the eyes, but I couldn't look away. It felt like time stopped. Then he started smiling. I thought, wait, what? And before I could process what was happening, he said, "Now look over there." Confused, I turned my head and saw a camera pointed right at me. At that moment, everything clicked. I saw my colleagues filming on their phones. My boss grinned and said, "Congratulations, you just started our corporate TikTok." In that split second, I felt a rush of emotions. First surprise, then panic, followed by the urge to disappear. I stood there in total shock while my colleagues clapped and cheered. Honestly, I almost turned gray on the spot. The worst part was that by the end of the evening, the video had tens of thousands of views. And to make matters even worse, some clients joined in on the joke and commented, "Hey, TikTok star, how's the report going?" I wanted to reply I quit, but I didn't. Instead, I just laughed, awkwardly, and tried to ignore them. Later, when my boss saw me, he gave me a knowing smile and said, "Don't worry, it's just a prank." Bro, but come on, that was not funny. That was cruel. So yeah, that's my story. The most traumatic day at my job. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching. Have you ever had a really bad day? Like everything that could go wrong did go wrong? Well, recently I had one of those days and it all happened at family dinner. You see, family dinners at our house are usually calm. Good food, small talk, a couple of jokes. But that evening everything went wrong from the very first minute. We had just sat down when my aunt suddenly started arguing with my uncle. At first it was quiet, just whispers about some minor issue. But within 5 minutes they were shouting, and in another couple of minutes, it became a full-blown show. My aunt suddenly stands up and yells, "You always ruin everything." My uncle throws a fork on the table and shouts, "No, you're the one causing problems here." The kids stop eating, Grandma crosses herself. My mom tries desperately to calm them down, and I just sit there thinking, oh my god, this is going to end in divorce right at the table. But that was just the beginning. My uncle grabs a napkin and throws it at my aunt. She responds by picking up a ladle and waving it like a sword. I genuinely thought someone was going to get hurt. Everyone is frozen, eyes wide, and some people even pull out their phones, probably thinking of calling 911. The tension in the room was unbelievable. Then comes the climax. My uncle picks up a plate of pasta, and instead of throwing it at the wall as we all expected, he carefully places it back on the table, looks at everyone, and suddenly starts laughing. My aunt pulls out her phone, turns on the camera, and says, "Guys, we just got amazing footage for TikTok." The shock instantly turned into hysteria. It turned out everything was staged. My cousin, who runs a sketch channel, had orchestrated the entire scene. I sat there, utterly dumbfounded, because I genuinely believed our family was falling apart. At that moment, I realized, in our family, the most dangerous ingredient at dinner isn't the food, it's the sense of humor. Hey, you ever been on a bus? No, not like a tour bus, just like a city bus. Well, I was taking the bus home from work one evening. It was crowded, like usual. People were tired, some dozing off, others scrolling on their phones. And I was sitting there thinking, this is the life. And then I saw this guy sitting across from me with this huge black bag on his lap. And I thought, HMM, that's an interesting bag. But I didn't think much of it until I heard the sound, like someone shifting something heavy. And then he did it again. And then I saw the corner of his huge black bag move. And suddenly he unzips the bag and pulls out an axe. A real, like shiny metal axe. And everyone on the bus kind of froze. I mean, we all turned to look at him. I held my breath. There was this woman nearby who hugged her child tightly, like shielding him with her body. And the bus driver kept glancing at him in the rearview mirror, but he didn't stop the bus or say anything. The guy with the axe sat down calmly and started stroking it like it was a pet or something. And I'm thinking, this is it. This is the nightmare that nobody will believe. The axe guy is here, and my mind started racing. Thinking about all the crazy things I'd seen on Reddit and YouTube. You know, people going crazy with axes on public transport. This is it. The axe guy has chosen this bus and all of its passengers to be his victims. And then he stands up, slowly, axe in hand, and I'm already mentally preparing to leap for the exit, you know, to make a run for it. But the doors were closed, and the scariest part was the bus was deathly silent. You could literally hear a pin drop or a phone hitting the floor. That would be bad. And he took a few steps toward the middle of the bus and then shouted, "All right, everyone, who's ready for the watermelon chopping contest?" And he pulled out this huge green watermelon from the back, sets it carefully in the aisle, and starts performing these amazing chopping tricks with the axe, like a circus performer. And I'm sitting there thinking, no way. This guy is actually going to chop the watermelon with an axe on a moving bus. And people are stunned into silence, but then they started taking out their phones to film. And I sat there thinking, I am never taking the bus at night again.